Friends, we can all see that many white bloggers have millions of followers. Please support me too, because my followers are still few. Black bloggers also deserve to be famous. My friends, let's unite and lift each other up. Please press subscribe button and like. The hum of the air conditioner in the New York City brownstone was the only sound for a long time. Ben and Angela Carter sat on their plush sofa, staring at the baby in the bassinet, a silent, beautiful puzzle. Her name was Naomi, and she was a marvel, a tiny, perfect human with a head full of impossibly light, almost white blonde hair and eyes the color of a summer sky. Her skin, too, was a pale, creamy alabaster, a stark contrast to her parents' rich, deep ebony. "You just don't get it," Ben finally whispered, the words catching in his throat. He was a tall man, a pillar of calm in his career as an air traffic controller. But this tiny being had thrown his world into chaos. Angela, a warm, vibrant woman who managed a bustling bookstore in Brooklyn, reached for her husband's hand. "The doctor said she's perfectly healthy, no albinism, nothing like that, just a miracle baby." They had been high school sweethearts, inseparable since their days in Atlanta. Their families, both with deep roots in the American South, were proud, close-knit, and unequivocally black. They had 2 other children, Aisha, 4, and Malik, 2 both with the same warm brown eyes and curly black hair as their parents. The sudden arrival of Naomi, this alabaster child, had left them and their entire family in a state of bewildered wonder. The first few days were a blur of hushed phone calls and wide-eyed visitors. Ben's mother, an elderly woman who believed in signs and omens, said Naomi was a gift, a testament to the family's strength. Angela's father, a pragmatic man who ran a successful contracting business, simply said, "Genetics is a funny thing." But even they couldn't hide the questions in their eyes. Ben, in a moment of panic at the hospital, had even joked, "Is she mine?" The words hung in the air, a fleeting shadow on their perfect life. But Angela's look of utter disbelief had instantly banished the thought. Her loyalty was a foundation of their life, and he knew it was a ridiculous question. "The first thing I did," Ben recalled, staring at his daughter, "was just look at her and think, what in the world?" Angela smiled faintly. "She's so beautiful, like a little porcelain doll." The geneticists they consulted were equally baffled. Professor Evan Harrison, a leading expert at a prestigious university, called Naomi's birth extraordinary. He explained that in communities with a history of significant genetic mixing, like some Afro-Caribbean populations, a lighter skin tone could sometimes appear in a child, a stark departure from the parent's appearance. But in their family's lineage, there was no known white heritage. The family tree was a strong, deep-rooted oak, not a sprawling, tangled vine. The pale genes must have been passed down through generations, dormant and hidden, before suddenly re-emerging. Professor Harrison had said, "It's a rare phenomenon, but not impossible." But the long, straight, blonde hair was an entirely different mystery. "Even most blonde kids don't have hair like this at birth," the professor noted. The most likely explanation, he concluded, was a previously unknown genetic mutation. "The rules of genetics are complex," he admitted, "and there is still so much we don't understand." As the days turned into weeks, life settled into a new, albeit different, rhythm. Naomi was a happy, healthy baby, her cries and coos no different from those of her siblings. But going out in public became an exercise in patience. Angela found herself a target of stares and whispers. At the grocery store, in the park, even at the pediatrician's office, people would look at her, then at Naomi, and then back at her again with an unreadable expression. "Is she your daughter?" a woman had asked her bluntly in the park one afternoon. Angela, holding a fussy Naomi, had to take a deep breath. "Yes, she is." "Oh," the woman said, and the single word was filled with 1,000 assumptions. It was her older daughter, Aisha, who was the most curious. "Mommy, why is Naomi so white?" she would ask, stroking her sister's pale cheek with a tiny finger. "Because that's how she was made, honey," Angela would say, trying to keep her voice light. She's just a little bit different, that's all. But Aisha wasn't satisfied. But we're a black family, she said, echoing a sentiment she had heard from her grandparents. Why is she so different? Ben and Angela tried to explain it to her in the simplest terms. Sometimes, families have different colors in them, just like a beautiful painting has many colors. It makes our family unique and special. They did their best to make sure their children understood that Naomi was their sister, their family, and that her skin color didn't change a thing. But the outside world was not as forgiving. One evening, Ben found himself in a conversation with a colleague who was a single white man with a black foster child. It's funny, the man said. People always assume him his father, even though we look nothing alike. But for you, it's the opposite, isn't it? Ben felt a pang of frustration. It's not about what she looks like. It's about who she is. She's our daughter. And that's all that matters. He said the words with a conviction that he had to continually reinforce for himself. The narrative of their family was a simple one, but it was being complicated by a single, unexpected fact. A fact that was plain for all to see. Angela, too, felt the weight of it. She remembered a conversation with a mother in her book club, a woman who had a biracial child. I never realized how much we identify ourselves with being black or white until I had him, the woman had confided. My son looks just like me, a mix of both of his parents. But your situation, it's a whole different kind of identity crisis. The comment stung. Angela had to remind herself that Naomi's identity wasn't a crisis. It was a reality, and it was their job, as her parents, to help her navigate it. One afternoon, a delivery driver came to their door. He was a friendly, talkative man who had seen Ben and Angela's other two children playing in the yard. When he saw Naomi in her baby carrier, he froze. "Whoa," he said, his eyes wide. "She looks just like my little niece." He pointed at a picture of a white girl with bright blonde hair and a huge smile on the screen of his phone. "That's my sister's kid." He was just making an observation, but the comparison felt like a jolt. Angela forced a smile. "She's ours," she said firmly. "She's a little miracle." As Naomi grew, her personality began to shine through. She was a giggling, energetic child with a stubborn streak and a quirky sense of humor. Just like her parents, people who got to know them saw the resemblance in their mannerisms, in the way they laughed, in the way they moved. It was not in the color of their skin or the texture of their hair, but in the small, unspoken ways that family is defined. On Naomi's 4th birthday, they threw a big party in their backyard. The house was filled with family and friends, all celebrating the little girl who had brought so much joy and so many questions into their lives. Ben, holding a slice of cake, watched as Naomi ran around, her light hair a beacon of light in the sun-drenched yard, her skin like porcelain. Aisha and Malik were chasing her, their laughter a chorus of pure, unadulterated joy. He saw his sister, his parents, and his in-laws, their eyes no longer filled with confusion, but with love. He walked over to Angela, who was talking with a neighbor, and put his arm around her. "She's so amazing," he whispered in her ear. Angela turned to him, her eyes shining with emotion. "She is. She's perfect, isn't she?" Ben kissed her forehead. "The color doesn't matter. What matters is that she's ours, and she's a beautiful, healthy, and happy child." He looked at his family, his wife, his son, his daughters. A beautiful, multifaceted tapestry of human experience. He had no doubt that there would be more questions, more stares, and more challenges ahead, but they would face them together, because a family wasn't defined by the color of its skin, but by the love that held it together. The alabaster child had taught them all that.